Hello everyone, I'm Amir and I completed my CBSE Class 12th in 2018 and from Gyan Patna itself. So currently my university is shut down, so I thought maybe I can help the same people who are going through the phase of high schooling, and maybe I can contribute a little bit in understanding the chapters of English. And currently I'm in Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, and we'll start with class 11th book Snapshots because I think it is the more convenient one and it has got better chapters. So the first chapter that we are going to discuss is The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse by William Saroyan. And I think before anything else we need to understand that what is the basic idea of the chapter. So I think the whole story revolves around one single idea which William Saroyan is trying to convey, is that the rigidness in morality. So by rigidness I mean when we form very rigid opinions and we do not entertain any kind of amendments in some kind of opinions that we have inculcated within ourselves for a very long time. So I'm talking here about things we consider in binaries. So when I say gender and I say male and female, so male and female are two binaries of gender. So I'm rigid. So when we say, so it is recently that we have started including third gender or whatever, but we are rigid with two genders, male and female, masculine and feminine. So like that we say on like helping someone. So we have formed the binary that a task is right or wrong. So helping someone is a right task, like theft is a wrong task. So I'm talking about rigidness in the sense that we have certain opinions about things. The rigidness in morality, which means right and wrong. So when we form certain ideas that what kind of activities are actually wrong and what kind of activities are right and what is justified and what is not justified. So we are basically talking about rigidness in identifying such things. So this chapter particularly deals with rigidness in morality does not operate within the world of youngster. So what we consider right and wrong might not be the same for the children of some age group. So let's say theft or robbery. So a small child might never understand why robbery is wrong and why theft is wrong, but we understand. So what we understand as a basic idea of like what is wrong and what is right in the world does not really operate on the children. So I think this is a very basic idea that this chapter revolves around, and there are other layers into the chapter we will be discussing when we start the story. So if I had to conclude the whole idea of the story, it basically can be concluded in two lines, which talks about that our strictness or rigidness in morality does not apply on the children. So what we think, they might not think that way, and that is why this chapter also maybe in some indirect sense tries to point out to us how we should be inclusive of choices by respecting choices of others, and how we can make society a more acceptable and inclusive place in the first place. So this story is about two Armenian boys, Aram and Murad. So Aram is 9 years old and Murad is 13 years old, and they lived in Walnut Avenue, which is a countryside in California. And this story starts with Aram, who is a 9-year-old boy and is sleeping in his bed, and it's quite early in the morning, and suddenly he hears a knock knock sound on his window, and he kind of thinks that who is there in the window this early morning. And so he gets out of his bed and then he moves towards the window, and then he kind of sees a very beautiful and very surprising thing. So his cousin Murad, who is a 13-year-old boy, is on a beautiful white horse, and so he thinks that and so here comes the twist part, that Aram could not actually believe that Murad was on a white horse, because horses in countryside are a huge economic asset, and the tribe from which Murad and Aram belongs is a very poor tribe. The tribe's name is Garoclanian tribe. So the tribe is very poor. So it is impossible for Murad to buy it, or any other member of the family to buy a horse. So that is why Aram is in complete denial, that is it actually happening. So he rubs his eyes and then he kind of tries to reason that what is happening and is it actually true or is it just a dream. So then he kind of rubs his eyes, and there was enough sunlight to make Aram believe that yeah, it is actually happening. And then he thinks that did Murad steal the horse, and that is a very conflicting thought, because the tribe members have been known for the honesty, and so is Aram and Murad. So it is very hard for Aram to believe that Murad stole the horse. And then here a young child is trying to justify in one of the lines that how the idea of stealing is different for us, like as youngsters and others around Aram and Murad, but it is very different for Aram. So there is a line in the story which says, which talks about that if Aram and Murad, like if they do not sell the horse, it's not stealing. So if they have taken the horse from the farmer, and if they do not sell the horse and actually just ride the horse and return it again to the farmer, then it's actually not stealing. So that is a young child reasoning the deeds of his cousin, and then that is how he realizes that what actually is stealing. And then he kind of denies that it is not stealing, because the purpose of the act is not really what stealing actually is. So the first page concludes with Murad knocking on the window and Aram trying to believe that it is actually happening or not, and then actually reasoning that what is happening here. So this is first page of the story, and then we move on to the second page. Yeah, and then he gives two reasons that why he is justifying this stealing of the horse. So first, that the members of the tribe from which Aram and Murad belong are really poor. The members are really poor. And second is that Aram has been longing, like he has been desirous to ride a horse for the longest time, and it is his dream to ride a horse. So why not, if there is an opportunity, and it's not actually stealing because they will return the horse to the farmer as they plan, so why not to do it? So I think it is the whole idea of justification that Aram is trying to portray here. And then I think the second page is basically what sums up the whole story. For me personally, I think the second page is mostly what this story is about, and the longest paragraph in the second page. I mean, there are two paragraphs consequently. So that these two paragraphs actually like sum up the whole story, and what William Saroyan is trying to convey through the story can be seen into the paragraph. So I'll just make a quick reading of the two paragraphs, which are short ones, so that like we can actually understand that what they are actually trying to convey. So we were poor, we had no money, our whole tribe was poverty stricken. Each branch of the Garaglanian family was living in the most amazing and comical poverty in the world. So what does the writer mean here by comical poverty? So first he mentions that the tribe is really honest. So while a tribe is honest and poor, so honesty and poverty are two very contradictory terms together, which most of the people take the wrong idea. So with poverty comes a lot of crimes, different kind of crimes. So with poverty, people start stealing, people start murdering. So that is why the tribe is so honest and so clear in character that it is almost comical that poors are very honest and they are respected all around. So it is a comical poverty because no one can guess that where do they get their 3 meals a day, and then they do not even steal. So it's a very comical poverty in the world. And then the writer writes, nobody could understand where we ever got money enough to keep us with food on our bellies, not even the old men of the family. Most important of all, though we were famous for our honesty. We had been famous for our honesty for something like 11 centuries, even when we had been the wealthiest family in what we like to think was the world. So here, the writer talks about the tribe which has been known for the honesty for now for 11 centuries, and it is important to note that while they were the wealthiest, like they were obviously wealthier than how they are now, even then they were really honest, and now even though they have been poor for all this time, they're still honest. And then none of us, yeah, and then it is, so now the most important line of the chapter comes, which is really important, and it is, we were proud first, honest next, and after that we believed in right and wrong. So here is the basic and the most important line of the story which William Saroyan is trying to convey, and it is actually what is revolving around the world if you try to figure it out. So here he says, we were proud first, honest next, and then we believed in right and wrong. So if I had to relate it to some example, and if I had to relate it to the story, so let's say the Galilean tribe is really honest. But when someone is born in the tribe, so let's say when Aram was born, and now even though Aram is 9 years old, he has done nothing to prove his honesty. He has done nothing so spectacular that one should say that Aram is really honest. But when Aram was born, and when he was 2 years, 3 years old, he was actually very proud of that tribe, that he was honest, he was from an honest tribe. So first when Aram was born, he was honest, and then after some years, he did something to prove that he is actually honest. And then he believed in what is right and what is wrong. So here comes that we kind of borrow the feelings first and then the deeds from our previous generations. So William Saroyan is trying to say here that it is very likely that first everyone in the world derives the feelings as in, suppose someone's family, someone's father is a thief, and he would first be ashamed because when he is like 4 years old and he understands that what theft is and it's wrong in the whole society, it's considered a crime, then the child would be embarrassed even though he has never committed a crime or a robbery. And then maybe after certain years he actually commits robbery and then he's a thief. So first he's ashamed and then he's a thief, and then he understands what is right and what is wrong. So that is the whole idea, that how feelings comes first and then deeds and then the idea of morality. So that is a established sequence if one had to argue in terms of philosophy. And then the paragraph goes on, none of us would take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone steal. So I think this is the whole idea of the chapter. And then the story actually goes forward, and then it is like he jumps out of the window, Aram, because Murad asked him that please come, let's go on a ride, because they needed to finish it as soon as possible, because once there is sunlight it would be impossible actually to hide the horse, and if somebody sees the horse it is going to be a huge trouble for them. So so Aram kind of hurries up out of his bed, puts on his clothes, and then jumps out of his window, and then he sits on the horse with Murad, and Murad kicks on the stomach of the horse, and the horse snorts and then starts running. And Murad describes this feeling as a feeling of immense joy and pleasure, because he has been longing to ride a horse for since his childhood days. And it is important to understand that the longingness is solely here kind of emphasized because it is a justification for the stealing part by the two children. And then they kind of ride the horses, and this story is particularly set in a countryside. I mean, the children live in a countryside because there are orchards and roads and irrigation ditches and vineyards and everything. So I think they kind of justify, and they are not really the native people, but they are Armenian people who are living in California's countryside. So that, and yeah, and then here's the important line. Well, it seemed to me stealing a horse for a ride was not the same thing as stealing something else such as money. So I think this, like these two children are relating stealing only by money, and they think, and they are trying to classify that what is more like what is worst, like what is a bigger crime, stealing a money or stealing a horse. And then they place it that stealing a money is a bigger crime and stealing a horse is not as intense or severe as crime as stealing money. So here the writer is trying to justify through the kids that they are thinking that money is, and that is how children think. They kind of mold the idea of any kind of objective morality. So I think that is there. And Then they talk about how like they go on a ride and the fresh breeze touches their face and they start writing. And then there comes a paragraph where the writer is trying to introduce other characters, so it is a layer, and basically it talks about the character of Murad. So Murad is a very crazy head, which means kind of mad. There is some madness in Murad, and he's a very carefree kind of person who lives with independence and tries to be adventurous in life, and thus like riding horses and everything is included in the story. And then a new character enters where Murad is being compared to his uncle Khushro. So Uncle Khushro is a person of who is a large, stout person with a very irritable nature and very short temper. And then he has got a very famous line, and he says, "Pay no attention to it. It's no harm, I say." So this particular line, which is being inculcated in the character of Murad, is actually trying to convey. Which is being inculcated in the character of Uncle Khushro, is actually to show that Uncle Khushro is a very non-materialistic person who is very much attached to his homeland and other kind of aspects of life apart from the materialistic things. And maybe that these are the feelings which is helping the whole tribe to be honest and not steal, because these are menial things to do and there are important things they regret about, and thus they do not pay any attention to the money. And then here is a paragraph: "Every family has a crazy streak in it somewhere, and my cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of the crazy streak in our tribe. Before him was our uncle Khosrow, an enormous man with a powerful head of black hair and the largest moustache in the San Joaquin Valley, a man so furious in temper, so irritable, so impatient that he stopped anyone from talking by roaring. It is no harm, pay no attention to it." So this is what the writer is describing Uncle Murad as, that he has got black hair, he's an enormous man who is having the largest moustache in San Joaquin Valley, and that's his overall character. And then the writer adds, "That was all, no matter what anybody happened to be talking about. Once it was his own son Arak, running 8 blocks to the barber shop where his father was having his moustache trimmed, to tell him that their house was on fire. This man Khosrow sat up in the chair and roared, 'It is no harm, pay no attention to it,' the barber said. But the boy says, 'Your house is on fire.' So Khosrow roared, 'Enough, it is no harm, I say.'" So this is the point where this carelessness and this sense of some kind of pride and sacrifice comes through the character of Uncle Khusro, where the house is actually on fire, which is a huge deal. One would be panicking, but Uncle Khusro at the barber's shop is still telling his son that pay no attention to it, it's no harm. So I think these are very less meaningful things in life for Uncle Khusro, and that is why he pays no attention to it. And same way, on Uncle Khusro, Murad has taken over. So Murad is actually like Uncle Khusro, who is a very carefree man, and he's non-materialistic, very irritable, of short temper, adventurous, of some pride, of some masculinity and everything. And then he says, "My cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of this man, although Murad's father was Zorab, who was practical and nothing else. That's how it was in our tribe. A man could be the father of his son's flesh, but that did not mean that he was also the father of his spirit." So yes, this happens. Like, we are not necessarily supposed to take on our fathers. We can actually be really, really different from our fathers. And one can be like a father. If we are not really similar to our fathers in any kind of aspect, then we are just the father owns the flesh, but our spirit is on someone else. That is our individualistic, or maybe you have taken over from someone else. And that is how we learn as a person throughout our lives, and then we keep adding on attributes from other people into our lives. And then they kind of ride, and there is this scene where they describe that how they go down the road and the horse is running, and then they finally stop after some minutes, and then Murad asks Aram that, "Can you please get off the horse, because I want to ride the horse alone." And then Aram gets really competitive, and then he says, "I will only get down and let you ride alone when you will also let me ride alone when you are done." And then Murad is like, "But you cannot ride horses." And Aram is like, "If you can, I can also ride the horse." And Murad is like, "But I have got a way with horse." So this particular sentence where one is saying I have got a way with horses is a very English style of speaking something where we are really comfortable and we actually have a knack for something. So when I say I have a way with English and I have a way with languages, and someone says they have a way with mathematics or sciences, so it means that they are naturally talented in that and they have a knack for it. So here it is important to understand that that is what Murad means by he has got a way with horses. And then Aram gets really jealous and competitive, and then he says, if you have got a way, whatever the way is, I have also got the same way with horses. And then they agree, and then finally Aram steps down and Murad pats on the horse, kicks the stomach, and the horse snorts and starts running really fast. And that moment is described by Aram as the most beautiful moment he had ever seen in his entire life. So then after a beautiful ride through the road in the countryside, Murad actually returns back safely, and then it is time for Aram to ride the horse. And then the most unknown and unconscious fear strikes Aram that he doesn't know how to ride a horse. How is he gonna manage? And then they're actually they try to negate the feeling, and Aram finally gets on the horse. And then Murad says, but kick the horse, then starts running. And when the horse starts running, and Aram doesn't have any clue what to do to a running horse, and then horse kind of loses the direction and starts running on its own, and instead of the road in the countryside, it starts running into vineyards and other paths, and it gets really, and then finally after some time, the horse throws Aram off the back and then runs away. Finally Murad arrives and starts panicking. Then they start panicking because if somebody finds the horse, then it's gonna be a huge trouble for them. They need to find the horse as soon as possible, so they go in two opposite directions. And after some searching for 30 minutes, Murad finally finds the horse, and then they by the time Murad finds the horse and meets Aram, it is actually some sunlight and people have started coming out of their houses. So now it's really unsafe for the horse, for them to take the horse back to the place where Murad was keeping it for whatsoever time. And then they go to a deserted vineyard. So a deserted vineyard is a place which is deserted, not anymore in use. So there are deserted houses in villages and cities, and nobody actually lives in there, and it's just empty. So one of those vineyards, they go and they tie the horse, and then there's this a discussion where Aram wants to ask if Murad has been hiding the horse for a very long time, and why did he not ask Aram before, and why he was riding it all alone. And then Aram actually asks Murad that for how long are you having the horses, or did you steal the horse? And then Murad is like, who talks about stealing? And even for whatever time Murad is having the horse, he's not gonna tell Aram, because that is going to make Aram also dishonest. So here what writer means is that if, let's say, I meet someone and they say that they returned to Patna today itself, and even though they returned to Patna for 15 days back, but when somebody asks me that when the person X came to Patna, I would say that he just came today, because I know that he came today, because that is what I have been told. So I'm not being dishonest, but I'm sharing what I actually know, and the other person is dishonest. So now here if Murad doesn't tell Aram that for how long he is actually having the horse for, and when they get caught and somebody asks, then Aram would say that it was yesterday or it was today, and then Aram is not being dishonest, and they're actually trying to preserve the honesty of the horse. Honesty and of the tribe, and they're trying to preserve their sense of pride in their honesty of the Gargalanian tribe. And this is a very intense idea where two young children are putting in every effort. So first they try to justify that stealing horse, riding it and returning it is not stealing. It is stealing only if they sell the horse. And in the second place they say stealing a horse is not as same as stealing money. And then in the third place Murad is not telling Aram that for how long is he having the horse, because he wants to preserve the honesty of Aram. So for this long there have been 3 instances where they are trying to actually preserve the honesty of the tribe. And then finally Aram returns to the house, And then that afternoon, two people come to the house, and these two. So first, Uncle Khushro is sitting in the house parlor, and then the second character who comes is John Byro, which is a farmer. And there is a short paragraph which I'm going to read out and then later explain it, that what actually happens in this scene where there is Aram, Aram's mother, Uncle Khushro, and John Byro, who is an Assyrian farmer. So, that afternoon, my Uncle Khushro came to our house for coffee and cigarettes. He sat in the parlor, sipping and smoking and remembering the old country. Then another visitor arrived, a farmer named John Byro, an Assyrian who, out of loneliness, had learned to speak Armenian. So what does the author mean that who out of loneliness learned to speak Armenian? So as a language student myself, I believe that language is really important for the preservation of culture and the entire existence of the human species. So here he means that when, so now he is an Assyrian and he doesn't know Armenian. So now when he shifts to the place where there are people who speak Armenian, now he has nobody else to talk in his own language, and now he wants people to talk to him, and when there is no communication, we feel really suffocated. Most of us, it might not be true for all of us, but it happens that we want to speak to people. But if there are language barriers, how can we speak to people? So when he felt so alone that he cannot talk to anyone, out of loneliness, he actually learned Armenian to interact with the people who spoke Armenian. So that is what the writer means, that when someone out of loneliness learns a language. And then the paragraph is, my mother brought the lonely visitor coffee and tobacco, and he rolled a cigarette and sipped and smoked, and then at last, sighing sadly, he said, my white horse, which was stolen last month, is still gone. I cannot understand it. So now the mother serves with the different cigarettes and tobacco and snacks and whatever, and then the farmer kind of troubles his mentions his trouble that his horse was stolen last month actually has not returned yet, and that's the same beautiful white horse which Murad is having. So now the paragraph advances, and my Uncle Khushro became very irritated and shouted, it's no harm. What is the loss of a horse? Haven't we all lost the homeland? What is this crying over a horse? So here Uncle Khushro is sitting and he listens to the farmer complaining about the problems, and then he's like, who talks about a horse? We have lost our homeland. What is this whining about the horse? Stop it, it's no harm, which is his usual dialogue, and he uses it. And then the farmer is like, that may be all right for you, a city dweller, to say, John Byro said, but what of my sari? What good is sari without a horse? So a sari is a wooden structure which is more like a cart, like how buffalo ox carts in India are. So this particular line means that since John Byro had a horse, he could use the sari, which is a wooden structure behind the horse, and the horse pulls the sari. So he means that if there is no sari, if there is no horse, what use is of the sari? And then Uncle Khushro is like, pay no attention to it, he wrote. So that is the usual line. He says, pay no attention to it, Uncle Khushro. And then I walked 10 miles to get here, John Byro said. So here John Byro actually means that if he had the horse who could pull the sari, he did not need to walk 10 miles to reach to Aram's place. And then Uncle Khushro, you have got legs, what is this whining over? It's no harm, Uncle Khushro shouted. And my left leg pains me, the farmer said. So the farmer says that the left leg actually pains after walking for like 10 miles, which is a huge distance for us also. And Uncle Khushro again roars, pay no attention to it. So it's the usual dialogue that Uncle Khushro uses. That horse cost me $60, the farmer said. So $60 is a huge amount in countryside, and considering the time frame in which the story is actually set. And then he got up and stalked out of the house, slamming the door. So Uncle Khushro is very irritated at all of this mentioning of horse, money and study and everything, and then he actually gets up, like rushes outside the parlor and slams the door in anger, like how he has forcefully slammed the door when we are angry at someone. And then then Aram's mother actually tries explaining that, you know, he's not a bad man at heart, but he's just a little rough and maybe audacious in his words. And he kind of explained. And then Aram runs towards meeting Murad because he's really surprised at knowing that he's having the horse for last 1 month. And then he goes and he finds Murad sitting under a tree where he's fixing a robin. A robin is a bird, and a robin bird, and he is fixing the wings, which is likely to be broken. And then he asks, "What is it?" And then he says, "You did not tell me you were you had the horse for month." And here Aram tries to take advantage of the situation, and he says, "Promise me that you will not return the horse unless and until I learn to ride." And then Murad is like, "We cannot do that. We need to return the horse to the farmers as soon as possible, and it would take you a year, around almost 12 months, to learn how to ride a horse, so we cannot keep it for that long." And then Aram kind of desperately asked it, "But for how long actually can we keep the horse?" And then he's like, "Maybe for like 6 months latest, but we have to return it." And then they decide that till Aram learns how to ride a horse, they will keep it. And then after that, they ride the horse for 2 weeks, and every time the horse would throw Aram off the back, and Aram could not actually learn for 2 weeks that how to ride a horse or control the horse and whatever. So one morning when they are returning after the horse ride, their regular schedule, so they actually bump into John Byro. By bump into, I mean they meet John Byro mistakenly, accidentally, incidentally, and they get kind of panicked. But Murad is a smart kid, just like Uncle Khosrow, and he's very brave at heart. So he asks Aram that please stay with the horse, like please stay at the back. I have got a way with farmers, the usual line that Murad uses for all the time. So he says that you stay back, I'll go and talk to John Byro, I have also a way with farmers. So he goes, and then the basic conversation takes place, and then John Byro says that if it wasn't for the honesty of the tribe, he could swear that the horse which was with Murad was actually his own horse. So here the honesty part is so much prevalent, and it's such a huge thing for the tribe that John Byro, even though the horse is in front of him actually, and he can look that, and he can see that it's actually the horse which was under the possession of John Byro. So there also he's denying that it is actually his horse, because they know about the honesty of the Garaglanian tribe, and they are trying to and he is trying to deny his own eyes because he cannot question the kids and the honesty of the tribe. And then he says that if it wasn't for the tribe, he would have thought that it was his own horse, but he can never question the honesty, so it must be a twin of the same horse. And then he closely examines the horse, and then he checks the teeth and everything, and it's all the same. So he can, and then he finally says that it's actually the twin of the same horse. And it's actually a very sad thing for him to see that, but he cannot question, so he leaves in suspicion and some kind of a little bit of hint in his heart. So then Murad and Aram decide that it is time now that they return the horse to the John Byro. So next morning they go to the farm of John Byro, and they actually leave the horse there, and while walking, the dogs do not bark at them. So Aram is really surprised, and he says to Murad that he thought that the dogs would bark at them, but they did not actually, and what can be the reason? So Murad says that I've got away with the dogs as well, which is the usual line. So that is how character building of Murad is happening throughout the story, and they finally keep the horse in the vineyard, and then he pats and rubs the horse for a while, and then he kisses on the nose of the horse and then leaves. So now John Byro gets the horse back. So there comes the last paragraph of the story, which actually means that and then the same afternoon, John Byro on his study comes to Aram's house. So now that the horse is has actually returned to John Byro, so now he can actually use the surrey, and he needs not to walk for like 10 miles to reach Aram's house. So that afternoon, so the paragraph reads that afternoon, John Byro came to our house in his surrey and showed my mother the horse that had been stolen and returned. So now he says that the horse which was stolen some 2 months back has now actually returned, and shows the horse that how like beautiful and precious the horse actually is. And he says that in confusion that I don't know what to think about it, because the horse is stronger and better tempered than before. So while Murad and Aram had the horse, they were very much cautious and responsible, and nothing should happen to the horse actually, because then that would be stealing, because they need to return as they took the horse from the farmer or in a better condition. So they actually take great care of the horse, and then after riding for so many mornings, the horse actually gets better tempered and stronger than before. And then the horse is stronger than ever, better tempered too, I thank God. My uncle Khushro, who was in the parlor, became irritated and shouted, "Quiet, man, quiet! Your horse has been returned, pay no attention to it." So the scene ends on a funny note with Uncle Khushro, where the farmer is expressing his dilemma, that how he should feel about the whole thing that happened with the horse. And then John Byro is in the parlor, Uncle Khushro is in the parlor, and then he shouts that, "Quiet, man, quiet, now it has returned and there is no harm, so pay no attention to it." And then the story ends. So actually here, so we come across four. So while concluding the story, as I'll again repeat that the story is about how rigidness of morality can be justified through various ways by different people, and in specific by the younger generation of the children. So how we see morality and stealing and theft and murder and other kind of molestations and crime is not actually similar, that how other people see them. So the rigidness of morality first, the rigidness of morality does not operate in the world of the children. And there are four incidences, if one had to mention, that how Murad and Aram are justifying the stealing of the horse, specifically Aram, who is the first person. It's a first person narrative. So that is where it comes. So first he says that if they take the horse, ride it and return it to the farmer and not sell the horse, it's not stealing. Second, stealing a horse is not as same as stealing the money. So here money is considered to be a bigger crime than stealing a horse. Third is that third is I believe is in the page where I think there were three only. So the third is that they return the horse even better, like stronger and more tempered. So it is not actually stealing. So this is the whole story, which is The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse by William Saroyan, and this is how it concludes. And it's a very simple story. So after a thorough reading of the chapter, maybe the video can be more helpful in explaining lines and different scenarios and the chronology of the whole events. And it's not a very detailed specific chapter, so there are just a few names and the tribe's name and what it is famous for and how many times the justification is happening, and there are literally 5 or 6 characters overall in general. And it's not something where a lot of details needs to be remembered. And I think the idea is that the exams would be much like that. What was Garoclanian tribe famous for? The one would write honesty. It was for the 11th centuries and whatever. And then one question might come, that what does the writer mean when he says that we are proud first, honest next, and then we believe in right and wrong? So I've explained it in the video already, that what it actually means. And then someone might ask that how do the two cousins try to justify the act of stealing the horse by their own narrative? So one might try the 3 times they try to reason that it's not actually stealing. So I think it's a very simple chapter, and I hope it will be helpful. I'll be back with the next video very soon. Till then, please take help, and if there are any questions, please drop in the comment section so that I can get back with some better outcomes in the next video. Thank you so much.